Hi, and welcome to the Spooky Hours. My name's David Saunderson, and today we're going to be celebrating the birthdays of Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Vincent Price. And I've asked Vincent Price Scholar, I'll call you a scholar today, Peter, Vincent Price Scholar, Peter Fuller, to tell us about the gentlemen and their careers and how their lives cross paths as horror film stars. How are you, Peter?
I'm very well, Dave. Thanks for inviting me along.
No, it is a good time. It's a sunny time of the year to be celebrating their birthdays.
And what a great celebration we can have with three titans of horror.
Can you tell us about how their paths crossed on film? I know they appeared in a couple of films, but it wasn't that much, was it?
It's really a happy circumstance. I think it's one of those things where, by the tail end of like the '60s, they all had their own niche horror audiences, and I think it all combined with AIP at the when they were actually trying to branch out in the UK and Europe. So the first time that like Vincent and Christopher Lee ever actually encountered each other was on the set of The Oblong Box, which was originally going to be handed over to Michael Reeves after he'd done Witchfinder General, but of course, his mental health meant that he was taken off the project. And so Vincent and Christopher Lee got to meet each other then, and they became really firm, fast friends on the set. And they also had to deal with, a script which wasn't particularly good, but they only shared one scene together. And because they had two stories that were running parallel. But in that one scene, it's when I don't know whether you've seen it. It's probably a spoiler, but Christopher Lee has actually he's been slashed, and Vincent comes in and unfortunately, Christopher steps on his cape. So they had to redo the scene, sort of thing, because they just broke up laughing. So that was the first time they met.
It's a very good film. You've asked me whether I saw it. I thought it was, I was surprised. I was surprised how good that film was actually when I saw it. So I enjoyed it a lot. What about when it came to the three of them though? They appeared in Scream and Scream Again, didn't they?
Yes, that was
sort of.
Yes, I think what happened was that Deke Hayward, who was in charge of the production side on ARP's side, he thought at the last minute, he thought what a great opportunity is to bring in Peter Cushing at the 12th hour to actually just have that idea of having three titans of terror in one film, because he'd already had Christopher Lee and Vincent Price already on board. And so that's why if you see the poster, I always think that the marketing campaign was quite good, because they called it triple distilled horror. And I always kept thinking maybe that was they were talking about the triple being the three of them. But of course, again, Peter Cushing has one sequence by himself. He never meets the other two characters. And Vincent and Christopher Lee, again, they only have one scene together, which is at the end, which was another hilarious time on the set where they ended up having to laugh at each other, because I don't know whether you've seen it, or you would have probably seen it,
Yeah,
Vincent is being hypnotized by Christopher Lee, who's supposed to be some sort of alien or composite like Vincent is, and he hypnotizes him into moving backwards into a vat of acid. But of course, that vat of acid actually proved quite difficult for poor Vincent, because he got all of the liquid or the chemicals up his nose, and he had quite serious problems with his nose after that.
Okay, well, that's not good. So you had that one. I'm trying to think the next one. I'm thinking it's something like Madhouse, but it might be. Am I right? Is
Yes, it's
Madhouse the next
Madhouse.
film?
Yes.
They cross paths, and of course when we're saying about this, obviously there's so many Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee ones we could go forever. This is just the sort of the ones where Vincent seems to come into the mix.
Yeah,
So we're talking Madhouse.
yeah, but I think this is an underrated pleasure. Okay, poor old Vincent and everyone who was associated with Madhouse had real problems with it, because the script was terrible. It was, it was just really bad from day one. It was nothing what they signed up to do. It was supposed to be, like Vincent's Sunset Boulevard of horror, but it ends up being a bit of a mishmash. However, it's when him and Peter Cushing actually appear together that actually the film really comes alive. And it's all those scenes together which really, really makes it worth revisiting, because they are obviously having a great time together.
Yeah. So what's next then? I think I know what it is, but there could be some sneaky ones in between that and the 1980s, or am I wrong?
No, that's it. That was actually the last time we saw them,
Okay.
until, of course, House of the Long Shadows,
Okay.
moving forward to 1982, when, that was really, I mean, it's a piece of cinema history now, classic horror cinema history now, because it was the only time you got all three together sharing quality time, but with characters that were written specifically for them. Because Michael Armstrong, the screenplay writer of it, he had formulated the idea of using their characters from what they've done in the past. Like especially Vincent, has some great grandiose sort of soliloquizing throughout the film, and it's all sort of like pay homage to his Poe Price films. The Price.
Price Poe films.
The
There you go.
Corman films. I'm sorry about that.
Corman Poe Price.
Yes, those ones. But because that production was by Globus Golbus, and they specifically wanted to put the classic horror stars of yesteryear into a horror story, and so Michael Armstrong and Pete Walker, the director, they actually came up with that idea within 2 weeks, and Michael Armstrong had to write the screenplay within 2 weeks in order to sell the idea to John Carradine, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Vincent Price. They all loved it, and they all came on board and really enjoyed making it.
Yeah. So they obviously clearly they were friends. Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing, very much.
They all got on very well. Vincent and Christopher Lee were very, very close friends right up to the ends of their lives. Christopher had Vincent sent him a hat one Christmas, and I don't know whether you've seen them, but every Christmas, Christopher Lee used to do a video message to his fans.
I think I've seen some of them, yeah.
And he'd wear that little hat as as a thank you sort of thing. So he's always had a good relationship with Vincent. Peter was a much more quieter character, as his persona, but his personality. But still, they enjoyed their company.
So were there? We talked about film and. But what about television or radio? Were there other times where you could get the three titans together?
Well, you've certainly got Vincent and Peter Cushing together in the 70s. Firstly, for an episode of Price of Fear, which Vincent had done for the BBC. It was called The Man Who Hated Scenes, and it's a lovely, lovely, really lovely story. And both their voices are really wonderful to listen to, as well as the characterizations that they play. And then they also went off and did a 6-part series called Aliens in the Mine, which was all about telepathic aliens in Scotland. And again, that's a very interesting radio series to listen to, which was actually originally planned to have been a Doctor Who episode.
That's cool. What was your favourite Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing film together? But it can't be horror. It can't be Dracula or Curse of Frankenstein.
What you mean when they're all together in one film?
No, just when Christopher Lee and when Peter Cushing shared the screen, because we're talking about basically what's your favourite Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing film?
Okay,
not Dracula. I
have a really soft spot for The Creeping Flesh.
Yep. No, that's a very nice one.
I think my favourite is Horror Express.
Yeah, no, it's got some bits in as well. Yeah, no, that's good. I quite like The Skull.
The Skull was good. The Skull was very well directed and very well crafted.
I quite like it because you can sort of turn it on the other end, because you've kind of got Christopher Lee kind of being a good guy, whereas Peter Cushing is a bit of a bad guy. So I quite like that kind of that there. But there are lots to choose from. But no, I think so. You're either going to go for The Creeping Flesh or Horror Express.
I'd probably stick with Horror Express. It's the one that I revisit time and time again, because I think it's well crafted and it's got a great score.
Yeah, no, it is a fun film. So anyway, we'll leave that there. So we've got 2 days coming up of birthdays. I keep mucking this up. Birthdays, and we will be able to celebrate them this year, and we'll continue to celebrate them each year as they go.
And we will indeed. And hopefully once lockdown's finished, we can actually go and visit some of the places where they used to live, both in London and in Whitstable.
Yes. Now, before you go, what is Grisbanes? I'm seeing that on your T-shirt.
Well, the Grisbanes is the name of the family in House of the Long Shadows.
There you go. That was a sneaky one. I was lucky I picked that one up there. Before you go, Peter, show us your book. You've got a book behind your. Yes, you've got your book behind there.
We've got this wonderful book which We Belong Dead have produced. It's a celebration of Vincent Price. and is a wonderful addition to anybody's library because it covers not only Vincent's films, but also all his many, many other passions, his television appearances, radio, his culinary endeavors. It's great. And it's done by fans, for fans, and it's super, super collectible.
So where do they get a copy of that? How can they get a copy?
You can get that through, it's through We Belong Dead, unsunghorrors.com, I think. That's it. But I can give you the correct address.
I'll put it in the thing. All right. Well, thank you for that, Peter. We look forward to talking to you again about all the classic horrors, and you enjoy the birthday. We can all enjoy a birthday this week.
Yes, I'll be making Vincent Price pink tonics, which was one of his favorite cocktails.
That's delicious. Right, you take care.
Thanks, Abe.